Welcome back, subscribers. This is Johnny Hopper, and you're probably pissed about my title. I don't really care. I'm not the biggest fan of ChokeMAC, even though he's a Colorado native. He's taken me out a couple times, even when he's lapping me, and I get it, but he's definitely the winningest rider to never win a Supercross championship, so you can't argue with me there. And there's a lot of drama that went out in the 250 class and even in the 450 class. So starting with the 250 class, we've got Chase Sexton on top with a 52.8. No surprise there because he's healthy and he's trying to win his first championship. He's a young dude. I remember racing with him in the arena cross when he was trying to get his Supercross license, and he seemed sort of like a spoiled kid on a factory ride. But he was 16 at the time. But moving on, Austin Forkner was third, which was surprising because I know if you've watched some of my other videos, I've been hinting that he might have torn his ACL. Well, it's official. He's torn his ACL and his meniscus, and he was only a second off with a 53.9. So lucky for him, he's had a few weeks off to be able to do some physical therapy, and being on factory Pro Circuit Kawasaki, I'm sure they had some top level doctors doing cryogenics with him, all sorts of stuff to try to get his leg strong enough to be able to race. You can race without an ACL, but it does take at least, I would say, probably 6 weeks to start feeling like you can attack on the motorcycle. And unfortunately, he's only had 3 weeks, and we kind of saw that in the main event here. But what's interesting is Swap Moto. They're the guys that ran Trans World Motocross, and it was so sad to see them go under, but they started a new Swap Moto business, per se, limited liability company, and they had a little interview with Austin before the race, and he said that he was able to ride the past Wednesday, and he was able to do all the obstacles and the whoops, and his goal for the race was just to maintain a chance for the championship. And I want to know in the comments below, do you guys think he did a good job maintaining a chance for the championship? Personally, I don't think so. I think he got out to a very aggressive start, and he came from 5th all the way up to 2nd. Davalos was in 1st, and I personally think there should have been some pit boards right away for Pro Circuit to do some team orders to be, hey, you need to get behind Forkner, you need to block Sexton and these other guys coming up, because Forkner needs to try to get out front and get some space between them. But that's not what happened. Austin and Davalos were getting into it, and they ended up across the start, over jumping a little bit, landing in the face, and it kind of ended Austin's night. But before that, he came through the pack and he ended up block passing Sexton, which Sexton didn't like that. I personally didn't see anything wrong with it. I mean, he was going wide around the corner. He left the inside free, and these guys are battling for a championship. You know, their first championship. Championships are what go in the record books. Nobody's going to remember who got second, who raced clean, or who won dirty. They're going to remember that guy won the championship in 2019. And Sexton ended up winning the race after Forkner pulled off the track because of too much pain from his ACL and his meniscus. I've ridden with a torn ACL, and the meniscus, it's really hard to ride because it's like a little pad in between your tib and fib and your femur. And when that thing gets ripped up, it feels like there's notches in there. And you don't want to turn or move your leg because it feels like there's something literally blocking it. Personally, I think he rode way too aggressive to start with. He should have hung back, and especially if he put himself in that position to be up front. I mean, the kid, he just needed to finish a couple places behind Sexton to keep everything alive for Vegas. And after he ended up having the hard impact where the suspension collapsed completely, put a lot of pressure on that knee, do you think he should have been able to roll around the track and maybe possibly still finish 10th or something so that he'd still have some sort of a chance for Vegas, as opposed to completely giving up and pulling off? Well, I'm not in Forkner's head. I don't know how much pain he was going through. Personally, do I think he did a good job maintaining the championship? No. Perhaps it was more of a immature, just young rider mistake where you're just all adrenaline and no real racecraft. These guys like Chad Reed and Justin Brayton, these older riders, they've got a little bit better strategy when it comes to these kind of things. And these younger kids, they just want to go wide open, and if they're not going to win, you know, they end up kind of crash trying. So what Sexton said on the podium about Forkner trying to take him out, and you shouldn't win championships that way.
Honestly, Austin was trying to take me out, and it was just, I mean, you can't really race like that. I mean, I know it's for a championship, but trying to solve front end off is not cool. So I'm just glad that I got into the lead and took this one. It feels really good, and
I think was not entirely true, because when Forkner's been healthy, he's been able to beat Sexton straight up 100% of the time. So now, to me, it seemed like he's going to inflate his chest out a little bit now that Forkner's hurt and he can beat him. That's my 2 cents. I want to know what your guys' 2 cents in the comments below. So let me know. So jumping into the 450s, there was 42 riders trying to qualify. They take 40. And Marvin Musquin was the fastest with a 51.8. And then Ken Roczen wasn't too far off with a 52.5, relatively right around 2/10 slower. Eli Tomac was 52.2, so he's like 4/10 slower. And then Cooper Webb, the guy that has the red plate right now, is right around 5/10 slower with this 52.288. So definitely on Red Bull Factory KTM, there's a clash going on between Marvin, who was supposed to be the #1 guy, and Cooper Webb.
You suck!
Marvin has obviously been the faster of the two when it comes to qualifying. Webb has had a hard time when it came to qualifying. He's already always 5th to 10th or so. It's very rare that he's inside the top 5 qualifying. So that was definitely interesting to see. You know, definitely Webb is a much better racer than he is just throw down one fast lap. And where Marvin is the exact opposite there. So when it came to the main event, Marvin did look like he had a fairly good jump, but then he ended up low siding and honestly getting run over. He did post on his social media that he came from last to 5th and he felt really good, and the whoops got so choppy because of being over on the East Coast. The terrain is just much softer because of the humidity, that the tracks just get this real deep ruts where sometimes they almost get ruts to the baseboard of the bottom of the stadium, with the board that they put on top of the grass so that they don't mess up the actual stadium floor. And Marvin was able to jump through the whoops, because we always know Marvin is a good jumper through the whoops. But it was very interesting for him to catch all the way up to Roczen, especially when Roczen was so close in qualifying time. And Roczen even posted on his social media that he just had some bad luck and he's got something going on where he's hinting at it might be Epstein-Barr, where he can't train or ride, but he hasn't officially announced if that's what's going on. So let me know if you guys think that is that what's going on with Roczen. Do you think he does have Epstein-Barr, isn't able to train? He can throw down a fast lap, but he can't do a 20-minute moto. I know Reed had it before at the Nationals, which I don't know how the heck he was able to do 2 30-minute motos plus 2 laps while with this syndrome going on, but he was able to do it. He never really finished super well. So Webb does exactly what he should be doing. He gets the whole shot, has a clear track in front of him, and he's beating the guys he needs to beat as far as Eli Tomac and Marvin Musquin. And then especially when Marvin Musquin went down, I guarantee you his mechanic was giving him a pit board telling him that that rider's down. And I know my title says ChokeMAC and I was dissing on him a little bit, but I have utmost respect for him, especially the way he raced Webb, because he had a couple opportunities to be able to just put Webb on the ground, and he ended up not making any contact whatsoever. Every pass that he made was definitely clean. And with the points being within a race, he honestly needs Webb to fall down for him to win this championship. And this is almost 3 years in a row where Tomac is so close to winning the championship, but unfortunately for Tomac, it's too little too late. and he ended up getting around him, and I can't believe Webb was fighting back. He should have stayed away from ChokeMAC, because I would be thinking that this guy wants me to land on the ground. But he ended up passing ChokeMAC back a couple times, and ChokeMAC passed him back cleanly, which I was super surprised. And so he's out front, and like my title says, ChokeMAC, he ended up right before the whoops, still leaned over and jumps into the whoops. It seemed like he was just had his off balance, like he wasn't straight up and down. He was still leaned over at the corner when he jumped into the whoops, and he got sideways and he ended up hitting the tough block and went down. And then Webb is just riding his own race, is out front. Then he's got Osborne, which is his training partner, so that guy's probably not going to take him out. He ends up passing him, but then right after the finish line or so, they've got this like double, triple step on and then step off. And because of their being over on the East Coast, these ruts get so incredibly gnarly, especially on the landing of these tabletops. TV doesn't do it justice. If you're able to walk the track afterward, you'd be so surprised, or to see even pictures of how deep these ruts are, with these guys tripling on top of these tabletops, landing into these gnarly 6-inch deep ruts. But anyway, Osborne looked like he almost jumped off the track, probably trying to jump off around a few of these ruts. Luckily he didn't fall over, but that gives Webb the lead again. And then ChokeMAC, here he comes, and ChokeMAC has to come back up through the pack again, has an opportunity to put Webb on the ground and doesn't, and ends up crashing in the same spot, same scenario, off balance, sideways in the whoops, hits the tough block, and Webb gets to win. Webb is an amazing at his racecraft, as far as his race strategy. In the clutch moment, that's the guy that you want to have on your team, because under pressure, he's going to be able to make stuff happen.
Yeah, it was a great main for me. I got a hole shot, which was really awesome, but yeah, it was a crazy first couple laps. Me and Eli going back and forth and battling right there, and I made a mistake that allowed him to get, you know, a little bit away, and then I felt like I was actually kind of inching closer and closer, and then he actually crashed, which was, you know, kind of from my end out of nowhere, and then, you know, was leading, and I felt like Zach and Baggett were all over me, and like I said, up here it's tough to, I know there's better lines that they're taking, that they're catching me, but I'm out front and don't really know where to go, and don't really want to switch the game plan. So, but Zach ended up getting by me and then made a mistake, and but overall I felt like it was a good race. I felt like I rode in my, you know, in a nice pace that was consistent, and, you know, not saying that these guys weren't, but the mistakes they made, you know, were kind of out of nowhere a little bit.
So all Webb has to do is finish 20th or better in Vegas to be able to win the championship. If we're going to see any explosions whatsoever, it's going to be at Vegas. I know a couple years ago, right before Dungey ended up retiring, him and ChokeMAC got together. ChokeMAC pushed Dungey off the track a couple times, you know, and at the time Josh Grant was his teammate, and Josh Grant was actually doing a really good job as far as being a wingman for ChokeMAC, and give it up to Dungey. He was able to pull it through and win the championship and retire on top, so go Dungey. But we might see sparks fly in the 450 class this weekend in Vegas. So I don't know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below who you're rooting for. If you want to see ChokeMAC take out Webb, or if you want to just see Webb just run away with it, let me know. And I know Ronnie Mac, he says that he's already won all the championships. He posted on social media that, you know, he won both classes, which was kind of humorous. So give it out to Ronnie Mac. But hope you enjoyed this. This is Johnny Hopper. Until next time, subscribe and watch the next video.